Let's talk about dream mat physics. What makes dream mat different than the other mats? Well, first we need to talk about traditional mats and define what they are and come to an agreement on this is what a traditional system is. And so I'm going to do that with some real world examples using the terms I've learned in the engineering community and my engineering background about physics, about engineering, about HVAC, about fluid dynamics, mechanical engineering. So I'm going to use those terms that I'm familiar with, but I will ground those to real world easy examples to understand so nobody will get lost. And so basically we'll look at the traditional sluice blocks, describe what's going on in traditional sluice blocks, agree that these examples are real world and they are true, and then we will compare the difference between the traditional sluice boxes and dream mat. All right, I got the sock on my hand because it's a better eraser than funky dry eraser that is pitiful. All right, traditional profiles. We've got this sawtooth or V-rib, V-mat going on. So, I'm going to need the space here. All right. We got our main flow going through the sluice box. Going out. We got the vortice flow that people like to see and draw as such in the perfect illustrational world. Going out. Notice the direction of the rolling vortices. So let's establish some basic facts in this sluice box in what we're doing. The vortices are all stirring that active exchange people like to talk about, and it's all going out. So we got the direction of the flow going out, the mid flow going out, and then there's a third flow that not many people are talking about. It's called the secondary boundary layer. And we're going to jump right into some terms that may be unfamiliar to you, but we will blurb some little stuff up on the board for you to see what's going on. Secondary boundary layer is your friction release. And what that is here's our airplane wing. And as the air goes over by this wing, we have to relieve the friction from this air, or this air would tear the wing off. So nature or physics developed what is called this rolling secondary boundary layer. And it's like this little, you need these little vortices that come off of here, off of these trailing edges, friction edges. So, and you can look this up in physics, it's confirmed, aerodynamics, this is all something that's basically out there. These boundary layers play an important part in the role of physics. Okay, so now let's go, well, let's see what this really means. So here we got our main flow again, and it's like a brick. I drew it like a brick. And it's like rolling on pencils. Here's pencils. And notice the direction of the brick, and then the direction of the rolling pencils to get the brick to go out. Now we know that if you put a brick on a bunch of pencils, you would roll it, and a bunch of these pencils will be left behind. Because the secondary boundary layer moves in a slower profile, buffer zone, friction release break, so that it allows for the larger flow to go quicker and not tear into that and have a friction against that surface. So it is our secondary boundary layer. So our secondary boundary layer develops here, down here in the deep B again, develops in that secondary boundary layer on these opposing surfaces. Not many people talk about this. So we're getting into some new stuff right off the bat, and it plays into the effect here. So just give me time to land the plane. So, but look at the direction it's going. It's going out. Okay. Now we'll say, well, where do we see this in the sluice box, Dave? Well, we got the sluice box down here. With all our sluicy stuff in it. Sorry, I was a little off there. Okay. And say we got some V-rib, here we're going to do our indicating thing, and then our sluice. Here's our tray. We throw our bunch of dirt right on here. Boom, boom. And as the main stuff shoots out, the big rocks, and you're left with this slick plate full of black sands and finer material. And it's kind of like stuck to the tray. And it's kind of like sliding off really quick. And that basically is letting you see the secondary boundary layer. No, we can't see it because we can't, the fluid is clear and we don't understand and we don't have that kind of x-ray vision. But in a blown up version, so basically here's all our particles, all our small particles. They get trapped underneath the secondary boundary layer for two reasons. One, they're small, and second, they're heavy. So they get trapped in that layer, and the secondary boundary layer jumps over that material as the main flow is going by and protects it from the main flow because it's so laid on the flat of the surface. So the secondary boundary layer always develops in between the surface and the flow. So it can't be developing underneath that flat layer of black sand, so it goes over the top of it. So that's why you see that stuff moving off the slick plate here really slow, is because the secondary boundary layer is going over the top of it. All right, so there's some basic three flows I want to talk about in the sluice box and how those items affect basically our flow. So now let's do another little real world example. And now that we got three flows established in this sluice box, in this profile, let's talk about another example. Here's the shoreline from the ocean. Okay, here's our wave. This is our wave energy coming in to the shoreline. It's carrying this energy, it's moving in. But as the shoreline, let's make it a little shallower, rushes up, now at the point of this crest, we got to move all this energy up here because it's running out of space. That's why we get this crest. And this is that vortex everybody likes to draw. So pretty and beautiful. I think this is what's happening in the sluice box all the time. So basically our crest comes up, but then notice as we go further over, we lose our energy and all our stuff crashes out. Now I wanted to use this as a real world example because this is what's happening a lot of times in our sluice box when we're loading material. So now, let's go ahead and talk more about our sluice box again. Draw some more illustrations. Well, might as well erase it all. There's not much space I'm going to need. All right, here we go. Let's talk about a more traditional profile that you guys are used to seeing. Hungarian riffle-ish type, or custom type hooky, swoopy, hooky dealies, we'll put a little drop riffles here at the end. Oop, ran off the board. Okay, so now let's talk about material within our flow. So of course we got our flow. And we got our vorticity flow. Our vorticity flow is going to change in the box according to the material, which we just talked about with the wave on the beach. So as we introduce our material in, and it's fallen into the cells, and flowing, here we got our high slurry ratio, which means that's mostly water. Because down below here we got the slurry ratio is getting kind of low. It's getting more like mud down in here because we're flowing across the bottom. Now, what happens here in this riffle is the material lands in this zone, and the vorticity moves out. And it eats at this and actually leaves you kind of with this concave, kind of pushing this material back in here. And if we all watch the video that's online, the guy sitting there talking with the clear box next to the flow of the profile that kind of looks like this, we see the profile full, and then we see them introducing material, and this stays full the whole time. It doesn't get eaten out. The vortice doesn't live in here. There isn't a super sucking power vortice that's hanging out in there. The vortice is hanging out in this area, doing his deal. So it's not hanging out in this super profile here. And also, one thing they talk about, in there, they talk about basically, okay, here comes the prize nugget, here it comes, and boink, and it lands right about here. Because this guy here is not getting sucked into that vortice. Now, that's a fairy tale that I want to just go after right now. And there's something that, I want to share with you guys that I learned from a engineer that mentored me that was in aerospace and mechanical engineering. He has a saying: it's fear, superstition, and tradition. Fear it. The reason he says that is that not tradition like your grandma's house for pie on the weekend, but we've always done it that way. It's always been done that way. Well, that's the way everybody does it. That's the tradition we need to fear. We need to understand why things are happening and what's going on with our material and our gold and everything to get better recovery. The fable is out there that we got this vortex, or more moderately, this vortex that's got a lot of suction power, like it'll suck a spaghetti noodle in there, and has all this, pulls the gold in down, or pulls it in, actually pulls it in. And we know we need to start talking about now some new terms that I want to share with you that I have learned that kind of say no. We got escape velocity and capture velocity. All right. So, escape velocity is like something that's too heavy to stay within the flow and falls out. This is a bowling ball, and it's falling out of the flow of the air or the stream, whatever it is. And the reason it's falling out is for two reasons. One is it's got a very low surface tension, or it's very effective, and it's heavy. But it's made of clay. I'm establishing some things here that kind of make you guys think. Here in capture velocity, we got the kite. And it's captured in the air, the wind. But we're going to say it's made of tinfoil, or I guess foil paper, which would be metal. It's got a high surface tension, and it's light. Okay, so we got these two items here that we see in flow, that we understand what's going on. Piece of trash gets carried away, the paper plates, the kites, the newspapers, all that stuff flies away. And then we got tinfoil or whatever, something with a flat surface. Then we got low surface tension objects that escape the flow, escape velocity. The fact that it's moving is what we really want to talk about. We don't want to talk about fluids or stuff that isn't moving. We don't want to use examples of like 3 jars of non-moving fluid and drop objects into them. We want to talk, Stokes' Law and stuff like that. We want to talk about moving items through the box. So we know, in another example, we know that items have potential energy, or they have the ability to basically take kinetic energy and exploit it. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the lead ball on the string going in circles. Here we are in the middle here, spinning it around with our arm. And we're spinning this thing around in circles, and we're feeling this need for the ball to want to launch out, but it can't because it's stuck to the string. So we're seeing that gravitational pull, we're seeing centrifugal force, we're seeing a lot of momentum, acceleration, and all this energy from our arm that we're spinning, from our arm being basically transferred to this mass of this item, which is the lead ball. Now we know that heavy objects or dense objects have a greater ability to capture potential energy. Now here's a good example of that. We all talk about it all the time. Ballistics. Here's our case. Here's our bullets leaving. The energy was applied by the blast of the shell. But we know because this lead is got a certain sectional density or ballistic coefficient, length by the cross section, sectional density, and we know the feet per second, we can map its trajectory. So we know how far it's going to go. So we understand that. Over here, with the kite world, we got the styrofoam peanut. That's really light, awesome styrofoam peanut. It's hanging off the string, and the string's probably heavier than styrofoam peanut. Here's our hand, and we're trying to put that energy again into that peanut and spin this in circles. It ain't happening. It's just lagging behind. It's because this lighter object doesn't have the ability to exert kinetic energy and move and get this escape velocity. It only seems to have the ability to be caught up in other flow and get captured. Capture velocity on items versus items that will always manage to have escape velocity. So there's our two kind of illustrations I want to talk about. And so we know that Evel Knievel is our little piece of gold today. He's got his little motorcycle. He's got his little cape, his little helmet, and his little handlebars. Big motorcycle. Here he has a little tailpipe. And he's going to ramp up over this. And we know, as Evel Knievel cruises in the flow, because he's captured in the flow, he's in capture velocity, and he's cruising, we know he isn't going to get sucked in here when he goes over that ramp. He's either going to land over here because he's got a poor jump, because he hasn't got enough speed and he's heavy, or he's really light and he's captured in the flow, and Evel Knievel is going to be like Elvis and leave the building. He's gone. He ain't never touching back down again. So that's kind of some things we got going on in the sluice box. And we know, even like that nugget I was talking about in that video, that he goes, here we got a prize nugget coming in for you guys, and it goes like this, because that was that perfect bullet path, because that nugget was moving so many inches per second. So, and it had mass, so it has a trajectory. And it landed exactly where we thought it would. All right, down here a little further, let's use another real world example. We got the semi-truck. Ooh, this is a pretty awesome semi-truck here. Woo-hoo, he's big trailer. Yeah, flat nose. Okay, there's got the cab over and the little smokestacks. All right, and it's everybody makes fun of that, not Freight-Line, but that one company. I forget anyways. So, semi-truck is cruising and it's out of control. And it has to go into a runaway truck ramp. Now, we know that the runaway truck ramp is a bunch of bed of sand that traps it over a long distance. So the mass of the object, which is heavy, this big heavy mass, gets captured and it loses its kinetic force and disperses its foot-pounds of energy into the sand and slows down and gets trapped. What we don't do for that big nugget or the big piece of gold in our sluice boxes is we don't, on the highways, make a ramp or put up a divider. Like we even see that profile out there. Because we know what's going to happen. One, it's going to ramp out and destroy itself, or it's going to hit this concrete wall and splatter into a million pieces. So basically, there's kind of some ideas of what I think that traditional boxes have issues with. All right, so capture that all in your mind like a steel trap. Get ready for more material flowing into the box kind of issues. All right. All right. Let me get rid of this one. Okay. Now we're going to talk about something that's happening in every box, regardless of its profile, with material moving into it. One, we got the flow going out. It's number one. Two, and where you get a little deeper into this, the material going through that's getting put into the box, and the vortexes that are acting upon it, and the shapes they're taking, is this acting upon it, are going out. So number two, out. Number one, out. Secondary boundary layer, the little pencils with the fine gold going up this ramp, dispersing off, and all these guys. Now, if these get full, our secondary boundary layer just goes right over top of it. But they stay and have a smaller eddy, and the secondary boundary layer gets chaosed out. Secondary boundary layer. Secondary boundary layer, our third flow, is all going out. So we're going to agree that all this going out, and we're going to give this all finally a label. We're going to land that plane. We're going to call this migration. This is why gold is always trying to get out of our box. It's because all the flow characteristics are perpendicular to the flow. Okay, what did I mean by that? Perpendicular to the flow. Let me show you. Here's our box. Here's our lines. Here's all our riffles, whether they're deep V, Hungarian riffle, super profiles of custom mats and what's going on. This is what I'm talking about, traditional stuff. All of it is perpendicular to the flow. Here's the flow, perpendicular. It's a 90-degree angle. That's what that means. It's all perpendicular to the flow. So all of these profiles have this one thing in common, is they help aid migration out the box. Out. All perpendicular profiles go out the box. All right, Dave, now let's go shift some gears here. Let's talk about why Dream Mat's different than these traditional boxes. How's Dream Mat different, Dave, than all these other stuff that you talked about? Okay. Dream Mat's profile. Okay, looking down on it, simplistic view. Our flow comes in, spins around the corner, comes in here and spins and goes like this. It's our simple view. Well, how do we know it does this, Dave? Okay, let's reinforce it with our examples. So basically, this whole design is based off a hydrocyclone technology. So when I went to develop Dream Mat, we were making all the different types of profiles, all the different types of boxes, all the different types of experiments. And I went off and I studied advanced mining techniques for 6 months. And I kept getting drawn back to the hydrocyclone and its simplicity. Even though hydrocyclone has been around a long time, since 1914. Okay, so hydrocyclone, crash course. Here it is, guys. Crash course on hydrocyclone. Alright, drawing some pretty pictures here. Should have made some sound effects to keep it more interesting. Sorry, I didn't. Okay, hydrocyclone. How does a hydrocyclone work? So basically, we talked about that spinning ball on the end of the string, the lead ball, and a centrifugal force. We have our inlet. So this is our inlet. And we have, of course, a certain mixture, slurry mixture. And it's not just the mixture, isn't just a certain ratio between water, the water and the material, a certain ratio. It actually is also under a certain pressure or velocity, and it's also a certain screen or mesh. So we got this exact deal coming into this, and this clone is size. Long skinny clones with long bases are for finishing clones, and then there's maintenance clones are short and fat, and there's for certain reasons why in is physics. And you'll kind of start to understand it here as we get going here. So basically our flow comes in, it gets shot around in a circle because it's on a tangent flow. How does it get shot around a circle? Well, just like the ball on the string, here's our ball on the string. It's going in a circle because we're holding it here. The outside wall is what's holding the flow. So as we come in on a tangent, it is stuck at going on that outside wall. Kind of like a centrifuge. A centrifuge is the same way. It's open. It's our bucket that's open to the top. That's the grooves in it. They throw the material in there. Everything gets slingshot to the sides, and the light material comes out. Okay. So on this hydrocyclone, this first curve coming around to 180 is called the vortex finder. And that is this first curve right here, the 180 vortex finder. Okay, as it spins, then as it gets towards the bottom, we start compressing it. We get narrower on our flow, and it starts to speed up. And they actually call this the acceleration part, or the acceleration cone. So here, from here to here, it's getting tighter, and this is our acceleration cone. And as it gathers on the bottom, this is called the apex. And this is where stuff concentrates, and this is actually an outlet. And then as it concentrates, we spit out a certain percentage. We'll just say, for fun, 25%. Well, we're putting in 100%, so their 75% better come out the top, or else we're building a bomb. So we spit out our cons. And no, they're not perfectly clean like the other fairy tale out there. So we spit out our cons, and as the cons are spitting out, the lights have got to leave somehow. So they got to leave through the secondary vortex that gets developed and goes out through our tailings, our waste, out the top. That's how hydrocyclone works. There's your crash course. So how the concentrates get collected in the hydrocyclone, like this ball, like I told you, it was always wanting, as it was traveling, to leave its trajectory. The heavy stuff, which has the heavy mass, remember, I've talked about the difference between the styrofoam peanut and the heavy ball. All your heavy stuff, drawn on this hydrocyclone now, get transferred to the sides of the cone. And they're kind of like this spinning mass of sludge on the side of it, just like your cyclone works over here. So basically now, as we compress and we go down, they collect. The light stuff stays in capture velocity, like the kite we talked about. We talked about the kite being caught in the wind. All the light stuff stays caught in the wind and goes out the top. So the heavy stuff gets slung to the sides because it can't go no further. The bowling balls can't go to the ground. And the light stuff stays with the kites and it gets thrown out, and all the heavy stuff goes out. In the apex, it goes out this apex and collects. All right. Now we're going to talk about and show the example more of how basically the dream mat. Oh, I shouldn't erase that much of that. We'll leave that up to the side so people can look at it. The dream mat's similar to that. So we're going to draw a little bit of 3D. Bear with me. in my awesome trying to sketch in three-dimensional here. Then we got our little hole. Then we got the bottom of the hole. Okay, not perfect. But anyways, our material comes in, comes around the corner, compresses and spins into here. As this material is collecting like down in here, the lights come up and come off like a cloud of smoke because the main flow going through the sluice box comes by and aids lifting all this light stuff off. So basically, we hold to the wall, we cruise around, we spin, we collect, and we go off. So basically, it's a mini stream-powered hydrocyclone. Basically, really based off this whole design and the physics behind it. Now let's talk about an illustration. I'm going to draw that 3D section one more time because I did such a poor job. But first, we're going to talk about the illustrations, capture velocity and escape velocity. I always like to use to complement and cement what these physics are doing in real world examples. So we got the trailer house. In the trailer court. It's got little trailer wheels on it. Okay, trailer house. And then we got the truck pulled outside the trailer house. The guy works for the bowling ball factory. He's got to deliver a load of bowling balls in the morning. All right. The tornado cruises into the trailer park. Starts ripping the metal and the skirting off. It gets flown away. Goes right through the trailer, rips it in half. The truck spills over, spills all the bowling balls all over the ground. Okay, this was in a movie. We all saw it. Not the bowling ball thing, but the illustration. After everything left, the bowling balls were still there on the ground and the trailer was gone. And why is that? Because the piece of skirting, or the roofing, is metal, but it has a high surface tension or surface area. The bowling ball, which is clay, so it's not as heavy, as dense as the metal, has a very low surface tension, or it's very efficient, coefficient of friction, and actually that's different, but anyways, or surface area is very efficient. So we got these two examples, and these are always happening in a sluice box. And this is where I see basically the physics break down and fail in traditional boxes compared to Dream Mat. All right, now we're going to show the difference here. We're going to show our material as it is in real world, shown in the videos, where the gold landed, down here, in our vortexes, our main flow, our secondary boundary layer, migrating that small gold, lifting it up into escape velocity using his ramps. So Elvis is leaving the building. Out. 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 That's what's going on. Migration. Now we're going to draw Dream Mat. Sorry, I got to draw it on the top view because it makes more sense that way. And my illustrations are a little chunky. Forgive me for my lack of artistic ability. All right, Dream Mat. Material comes in, collects what's light, carried off the top, the smoke from the thing, or jumps over the edge, jumps into the next cell, does it again. Jumps into the next cell, processes, lights out, does it again. Every one of these cells, what did we do with the material that came into the cell? Material came in, moved up. Here's the distance. Came in, moved up. Here's the distance. Came in, moved up. Here's the distance. On every one of the cells. Up. up, up. So I got 108 of these, or 180, I forget, in a 12-inch mat. So every time the material goes into a dream mat cell, it gets moved up. Nothing in the traditional profile up here is doing that. We are moving the material up every time. So that's the big difference between dream mat. Now, there's a really big, cool thing going on with the fine gold that I want to show you in that 3D cell again. Let's try and draw that 3D cell again. That's a little better. Bottom of the cell. Okay, so got a little thickness we'll even draw up here on top. Woo-hoo, getting fancy dancy tonight, Dave. All right, top of the cell. Thickness, so to speak. Here we go. So, secondary boundary layer being formed in the box is very important when it comes to a dream mat. We're going to attempt the dual 3D. I may not be able to pull this off, guys, so just bear with me. My brain is thinking, and it's not. It had a little bit of vapor lock there. Sorry. It happens. Bottom of the cell. All right. Cool, look at that. I pulled it off almost. Woohoo! I know you artists out there laughing. Anyways. Okay, secondary boundary layer. Here it is. Rolling pencils. Remember we talked about the rolling pencils? These are just long, skinny pencils. They're just round, fat on the end, so you see what's going on. We talked about them rolling. You know, they're rolling over to the main flow. Is carrying these guys. They're coming up to the dream mat profile here. Here's our pencils. They're coming up. They hit this wall. So then they break into two other smaller secondary boundary layers. We're still rolling. As they get compressed and start coming into the vortex finder, and they come to this turn, they start coming sideways and actually standing up against that wall because they're trying to jump out. And they stand up and they end up turning into a vertical axis, just like the hydrocyclone. Right there, that's what's going on. We get vertical axis, means right down the center. Here's the axes, spinning on the axes like a tornado. A tornado has a vertical axis. The waves have a horizontal axis. Horizontal axis, this is a horizontal axis. This is horizontal. This is the horizontal axis that has this migration happening. All of a sudden we start turning these guys up and spinning them in the cell and putting this material in and spinning off that light material that gets carried away like in a little plume cloud because of the main flow that's coming over the top. That's pushing all this. And carries away that, and the light material jumps out just like this, creates secondary vortex that comes out the top just like this, creates a secondary vortex out the top here and off of the larger part here, and we get rid of our lights and we collect our heavies and we spin them around. Now, even funner in that is, remember the semi-truck, remember we had the one runaway truck ramp, you gotta imagine a runaway truck ramp that's circular. So the truck doesn't have to ramp off, like I said before with the other profiles, where the truck wouldn't ramp off or crash into the wall. It gets captured in the slowly slowing down, spinning into that bed of sands that's in the bottom of this collection areas, and transfers this energy into there, so that fast moving gold that's got the energy that bounces through your box is caught in the cell, slowed down, trapped in the sands. Just like down in this apex chamber down here, just like this chamber here. So all the physics are the same, so the physics don't change. So what we have done is a term I like to say, we have broken the back of migration. We have broken the back, broke it right here, stood it up on end, spun it, and put it into that cell. We have broken the back of migration. So that's why we collect that finer gold, because what's in all this secondary boundary layer? All that fine gold particles, I'm making dots all around here, are in that area, and they get collected. And they don't get what? What is the other box doing? What do we do with the other box? We are launching those babies out of there off of the ramps. Bye, gold. See you later, gold. Cool. And then, of course, you know, all the drop purple fans are saying, you know, what about us? You know, what about us? Well, you know, you're spinning them and churning them out. Because you're spinning and churning everything out. Everything in the box, in the traditional flow, that's horizontal, perpendicular, I mean, flow that's perpendicular to the flow. Here's our flow. Remember, we got the lines perpendicular. All those profiles, all those horizontal lines that are perpendicular to the flow are migrating. We are migrating out. So that's the big difference between Dream Mat and a traditional box. Now, there's some other kind of shapes and sizes out there we could talk about more. We will in another video series. We'll call it maybe Dream Mat 102. Dream Mat Physics 102, we'll talk about the other cells that are up here in this corner that are cone-shaped. Well, there's no inlet. So if you were flowing alongside this cone, or this hole, over this hole, that are in an array, like over here, you know, a vertical array, there's rows of them, so they apply almost the same physics. We get a little bit of vortex here on the edges, in between them, and then we get most of it on this edge, this front edge. So you get this vortex shape that's like this arrow pointing in this guy here, and it's folding. So if we look at it from the side, here's our deal. You got this folding vortex, and that's at the fattest, middlest point, you know, through the center. You see that, and then it gets narrower as it goes towards the center of the sides. Because it doesn't have an inlet that drives it like a pump. Everybody recognizes that shape, don't you? You know, everybody's got one on their drench. They got the king pump. We don't got that inlet to drive that flow like Dream Mat does. You don't got the hydrocyclone action doing the work for you. So and we could go into a lot of different other kind of flows and shapes, and we will and we'll talk about fluid beds, and we'll talk about some other things that basically in what's going on there. But this was to talk about your traditional sluice boxes and what's going on in them. So here it is, Dream Mat 101. This is why Dream Mat is different than the traditional flows. So fear, superstition, and tradition. Just don't do it that way because you've always done it that way. We are the only box or the only mat out there that we're constantly moving the flow up the box in every cell. So we are breaking the back of migration, spinning it on end, and driving it into a hole with a bunch of collection zone in an intelligent engine. Here's our engine. This is what's underneath the hood of Dream Mat. And it should have, like, you know, well, that's way off to the side here, and it's going to be hard to see, and I'm going to get kind of goofy anyway. But, you know, basically, what's under the hood? You know, everybody says that. What's under your hood? You know, what do you got underneath there? What's your engine driving what you got going on? And so, Dream Mat's engine is a hydrocyclone. So, there it is. I kind of left all the pleasantries to the side to try and keep this under a half hour. All the insults, I tried to keep them at bay. And what's going on, you know, but what we see is this, you know, this reoccurs. You know, we like that river mapping guy, you know, we got this guy out here that maps the rivers, you know, and tells you where to find your flow. He doesn't say, hey, guess what, guys? I found this area in the river. It's got all this perpendicular to flow lines in it, just like this pattern of this sluice mat or this box, and that's where you're going to find your gold. Where do we find the gold? Where do we find the gold? Where do we find the spinning vortexes? We're looking for Dream Mats. Dream Mats. We're looking for centrifugal vertical axis eddies and flows in the river. We are looking for DreamMat profiles. That's why I can never understand why he isn't on board the whole DreamMat train. Because that's like right up his alley. That's how we locate it. But we don't give homage to basically the technology because this is what the tradition is. The tradition is this. We've always done it that way. It's always been done this way. It's always been accepted this way. This is the way we do it, Dave. We do not change from this. And yes, there are other mats out there, conveyor belt, fluid beds, some other specialty mats. And we're going to talk more about that in another deal. And we're going to talk about the difference between those and DreamMat in another one. But this is traditional flow. So there it is, guys. The traditional flow migrates out. Out, out, out. Push it out, way out. You know, you've heard it all the time at the games. All right, and DreamMat is up and back, you know, so so we're pushing them back. So anyways, that's the difference, guys. I hope you enjoyed this quick little illustration. I hope it wasn't too much. I used just a couple little terms of technology out there, but I try to keep it all real world and examples that I understand and explain it to you. And Einstein says if you can't explain it simply enough, you don't understand it well enough. And I just try to explain it simply to you so we just don't get carried away and it doesn't drag out. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.